wants immigration reform, claiming the sanctuary city policies allowed a violent illegal immigrant to go free and then later shoot one of his deputies. Merced County Sheriff's Office near Fresno says Guadalupe Lopez Herrera was in their custody in January. But because state lawmakers limited their cooperation with ICE, deputies couldn't turn him over for deportation. Sheriff Van Warnke had this to say.
Our immigration policies need to be revamped because we're going to continue to have more of this situation happen. We knew ahead of time that this guy's potential for violence was there.
Well, joining me now, the president of the National Border Patrol Council, Brandon Judd. Brandon, good to see you. The sheriff makes a point. It's a point we've heard made over and over and over in this country. Sanctuary cities. Are we ever going to get in control of those sanctuary cities?
Well, I think the answer to that is obviously yes, but it's going to take somebody that is not the typical politician. It's going to take somebody from the outside that's willing to step up and challenge the status quo. That's one of the main reasons the American public voted so heavily for President Trump. So many people flocked to the polls because they were tired of the status quo. They were tired of typical politicians that let China move into the Bahamas. They were tired of typical politicians that allow illegal aliens to cross our borders just absolutely unfettered and released into the United States. They're tired of politicians that allow for these sanctuary cities.
Yeah, you would think, but apparently California is one of those places that will have, I don't know, they may defend the sanctuary cities to the death out there. It is peculiar to me that a state that rich and seemingly with citizens that smart can be this dumb. It's just extraordinary what they're asking their people to put up with. But I want to turn real quickly to Montgomery County.
Certainly.
Blaming the conservative media, the White House, a top immigration official, by the way, for drawing attention to a number of sexual assaults, rapes by illegal aliens, 7 illegal immigrants, all of them from Central America. And this Elrich is going nuts because the media covered it as if he wants them to cover up the consequences of these failed border policies, these failed immigration policies, and sanctuary city policies.
Yeah, normally what happens when you don't have the facts on your side, what you start doing is you start name calling. You start tossing out xenophobia. You start tossing out that the president is racist. This city councilman, he has no logical argument to what's really going on. But the fact of the matter is if he was actually willing to debate Cuccinelli, like Cuccinelli challenged him to do,
the fact
he would lose miserably, which is the reason why he won't.
Yeah, he won't. And there's another matter, too. Integrity and courage. You don't talk like he did and come up against a guy like Cuccinelli.
Certainly.
It's preposterous. But the argument they possess is so preposterous that you'd be delighted if just once accidentally they would accept a challenge like Cuccinelli's. Susan Collins, Mitt Romney, Mike Lee, Brandon, questioning the president's authority to use nearly $4 billion to build the border wall. Now, Romney and Collins and Lee fancied themselves smart folks. How could smart folks not be aware that every administration in the recent era has actually had to reprogram funding and has done so, and that under a national emergency, which this president declared in February, it's absolutely essential to respond, and that is what he's doing.
Yeah, this is one of the things that is so disappointing to me, to see Republicans fighting against other Republicans instead of standing behind this administration and working with this administration to do what's right for the American public. Instead, Romney and Lee, Senators Romney and Lee, what they're doing is they're looking out for their own state rather than the well-being of the entire United States. And we've got to get behind the Democrats. They all vote in blocks. You always see that. Yet Republicans are constantly infighting, which is why it's so hard to get done. These rhinos.
Well, Romney is a bitter loser of the 2012 election for president. He hates the fact that President Trump won and keeps winning and is now a historic president, and he is a historic loser. That kind of petty envy on his part is not the stuff of character, and certainly not it appears the nation avoided a real disaster if we put another person of his character into the White House. It would have been awful. Mike Lee, he supports Senate Bill 386. He's pushing the bill to provide fairness for immigrants rather than for American workers. He wants more H-1B visas, double the amount. It is an assault on the national interest, on the American worker, our middle class, and Susan Collins, who I absolutely compliment, congratulate, and thank for standing with Justice Kavanaugh at his confirmation. But my God, when in the world is she going to wise up and follow this president?
Well, the good thing is President Trump is not going to take no for an answer. President Trump is not going to listen to the complaints of these three Republican senators. He's going to push forward. He's going to follow through with his promises, and he is going to secure the American people. We're seeing that right now. We're seeing historic drops in illegal immigration right now, and it's strictly based upon President Trump not accepting no for an answer, and he continues to push forward, and he's doing it because he cares about the American people. That's why he's doing it.
Do you think tonight it would be the appropriate time to inform those three senators, Collins and Romney and Lee, that they might look toward the judgment of the Supreme Court, which ruled that the transfers of such monies as the president is applying to the building of that wall to respond to a national emergency and to secure the border has been approved by the Supreme Court of the United States? Do you think they might have taken that into consideration before they started braying their nonsense, disloyally so? It was a rhetorical question, Brandon.
Yeah. Thank you. Because Mike Lee was a Supreme Court justice in the Utah Supreme
Was he really?
Court. He knows about that.
Then
yeah,
he must just be.
I thought
he must just be an honorary fella.
It might be his brother, but look, again, it doesn't matter because President Trump is not going to accept.
No, I'm not worried about it. No, let me be clear. The last person in this country that I worry about is the president standing fast for principle, because he is the only one I see in this country right now, in government, standing up for the American people. End, period, stop. Brandon Judd, good to see you, partner.